Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? It's been a long time. Yes, it has. Ramadan Mubarak to you too. Let's start proceedings actually by reminding each other and giving each other opportunity to give charity. Now, One Ummah is a fantastic charity. They're doing work all over the world and they are delivering these food packs. You see, with the essentials, things like rice and barley and oil and all these kinds of things to people most needy around the world in places like Pakistan and Afghanistan and Somalia, in Morocco and different parts of the world. And I think it's only right that we do our part. Yes, it's only right that we do our part. And click the link below. Only take a few seconds and imagine the immeasurable kinds of rewards that we'll get by giving charity to these places. So let's not forget to do that. Pornography. Pornography is a very pernicious kind of addiction, actually, in the new age. Just like many other addictions. And what are addictions? Addictions usually are defined as some kind of behavior or some kind of pattern which is harmful to the individual, yet the person has quote unquote no control over it. Yet we do have a lot of control over addictions, and those addictions are usually overcome by willpower. And this is a very controversial thing for many people. They'll say, no, we don't believe in willpower. If you're addicted to something, you literally have no control. This is bogus in my opinion. Having said this, let's take a look at some of the scientific workings out of pornography addiction in particular, and come back and respond and discuss in kind.
Though it's not a physical substance, it leads to the same general loss of control, the compulsiveness to seek out the activity despite negative consequences, and withdrawal when it goes away, much like that of gambling or running, for example. The issue is that continued exposure can cause long-term or even lifelong neuroplastic change in the brain. Dopamine is released as a reward whenever we accomplish something, whether it be eating to sustain life or sexual activity to produce future life. And this dopamine consolidates neural connections in order to drive us to perform the same activity in the future.
Now, as you see there is, and there has been many different kinds of things that have been kind of different studies in biology, in physiology, in psychology relating to addiction and pornography addiction and sex addiction in particular. In fact, I read a book just recently called Dopamine Nation, which now has been a fad, I would say, focused on the neurotransmitter dopamine and its effects. And basically, as you saw in the video there, the idea is the more you consume of pornography, the more you'll need. And it's interesting because it's meant to give you a pleasurable effect, but it's actually giving you the opposite, because the more you consume of it, the more you won't feel pleasure by doing things which would otherwise give you pleasure. And so the first reason why somebody should really consider quitting pornography as an addiction is because it actually has the adverse effect. This is a very interesting thing. It has the adverse effect. So if you're doing this for pleasure, then in the long run, the opposite will happen to you, that you'll get no pleasure out of it. In fact, it will stop you from having pleasure because it will blunt in your dopamine receptors. So it can be something of a pathetic irony that someone is seeking a kind of hedonism, but is in fact getting what you call anhedonia, which is the opposite of hedonism, which is your inability to feel pleasure through the same exact way in which you think you're getting the pleasure from. So the first reason, as I say, is because it has the adverse effect. The second reason is because it actually disturbs your mind and your ability to do hard work in other fields. Now, if you're an addict to something, if you're an addict to, for example, pornography or weed or any kind of thing, whereby you need something and you feel a loss of control, now that can't be good for you. And this is spelled out in some copious detail in the book, the Dopamine Nation, which I can't get into now because of brevity and conciseness. And the third reason, I would say the most important from our perspective as Muslims, is because of taqwa, because of purity. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. Allah says in the Quran that the one who has purified himself has already succeeded. So it's a kind of purification process where you remove from yourself the impediments of watching and consuming something like pornography. Now, Ramadan is a really good opportunity for us to do this. It's a month of fasting. It's a month where you're depriving yourself and you're controlling yourself and you're increasing your willpower. And as I say, willpower, according to some new age psychological theories, can actually be increased. It can be worked on like a muscle. And I refer you to a book written by Roy Baumeister called Willpower. Actually, a very interesting one where he talks about something called the ego depletion model. But he also talks about the fact that, yes, the threshold for willpower can increase. And so the strongest antidote, you see, for something like pornography or any kind of addiction is in fact willpower. And the month of Ramadan is a month where you're meant to expand your process, or expand your ability to have willpower, your sabr, your resilience. You see, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ الَّذِينَ يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُو رَبِّهِمْ وَأَنَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. That استعينوا, that seek patience and prayer. Patience and resilience. This is something that Ramadan is trying to foster within you, and this is the best opportunity. So the three reasons, once again: number one, because it actually has the adverse effect; number two, because it'll make you a weaker person, an addictive personality, and it will hinder your other processes where you're trying to do things, because now your mind requires this kind of dopaminergic reaction; and number three, because it purifies you, and doing the opposite and restraining yourself will increase your resilience and your willpower and your Islamic resolution and your what you would call steadfastness. With that, I will conclude. Don't forget to click the link below for the charity. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.